Wonderful.
Okay. Professor Nketia, we met 20 years ago.
Look at it. It's a long time, 20 years.
It is. First of all, I would like you to introduce yourself. Who are you?
Kwabena Nketia. All my life I've been interested in music, especially traditional music, and interested in the changes that have been taking place in traditional music from my childhood to the present. And I've been interested in how we have selected certain things to use as ours, and how we have borrowed other things that complement ours, but we still regard the whole thing as our way of doing things. And I've passed through quite a lot from my childhood experience as a child of non-literate parents, non-Christian, who became Christian and so forth. And the opportunity I had that my parents didn't have of going to school and being exposed to other ways of doing things, even traveling from Bampon to Accra, which is a long distance, and meeting all kinds of people and so forth. Some of them very friendly and so on. And the opportunities that came my way that I never thought about in terms of what I studied in Ghana and what I continue to study abroad. It just came my way because I never really as a child thought about that, and it happened. And every opportunity was like a new phase for me. And I know that I was very anxious always to know the area or the place where I am and what they're doing and so forth. I would go to church, I would go to performances, in all, sort of gathering new information, really not information I needed, but knowing the environment in which I was and finding myself afterwards drawing from that experience.
And 20 years ago, you worked at the Legon,
Right.
the Institute of African Studies.
Right.
Um,
And I had come from the Institute of African Studies in London.
in London.
Yes,
Yeah.
because the School of Oriental and African Studies.
Okay.
That was my first place that I broadened my horizon, first time, because I had a scholarship. There was an expert in Ghana languages who had been invited to come to Ghana to solve a problem. And I was then the assistant to the person who was dealing with manuscripts and so forth and so on. And I was so impressed by what I was doing that I ended up getting a scholarship to study at the School of Oriental Studies. So I could implement her decisions and recommendations and so forth. And of course, that extended from a 2-year thing to a 5-year thing in England. So I spent the best part of my life in England as a child, and I was, of course, very anxious to know England, to go to Albert Hall, and so forth and so on. So it was a great learning process for me, because the lady who invited me was interested in tree, and I happened to be the assistant to the tree specialist. And so she was trained me so I could deal with the problems that she came to solve. And it was a 2-year scholarship, then it was extended to 3, then I was an assistant in the school, and of course, talking to friends, who do correspondence courses and so forth, I had sort of prepared my mind for doing something on my own. So while working at the School of Oriental Studies, I registered for courses of the University of London. And so after my work seemed to have been completed, I had created an opportunity for myself to continue and do other things, so I could do a degree and so forth and so on. Yeah.
And the University of Legon, the African Studies,
Yeah.
during the last 20 years, can you explain what has happened? Where is it going?
Well, I've been in African studies since then, of course. It has been an opportunity for me as a research fellow who started from the sociology department and then to the Institute of African Studies to concentrate on research and the application of research to problems and so forth in my own society. It was a great opportunity. I was recruited when I was in England. I met the professor of sociology. He came for a lecture and he came to the school, and he had the idea of starting research in African music in his department.
Okay.
So after 3 years at Accra, I was offered a fellowship in the sociology department. And that was really where I was able to bring together the experiences that I had in Britain, going to conferences, going to school, and so forth, and starting on my own to do field work. See, it was exciting because he provided all the things I would need: a car, a driver, assistants, and so forth. Yeah.
And has this Institute of African Studies, how is it going today?
The idea that the Institute of African Studies should be set up came when I was a fellow in African Studies in the sociology department.
Yes.
And it was Nkrumah who hit upon the idea. He saw what I was doing and so forth and wanted to create an institute. So I was moved from the sociology department to the Institute of African Studies when it was founded. And of course that became my life long place.
Yes. Yeah. If you should talk about music ethnology, how do you see it today? Where is it?
Well, I don't know where it is exactly, because every ethnomusicologist has the freedom to experiment, do what he thinks he has found in another culture that may be transferred to another culture and so forth. So it is still in progress, and the early things we did seem to be duplicated and so forth, but it's expanding in horizon from a little a thing of interest in England to many places.
Yeah.
And I have been fortunate to follow this development, because everywhere ethnomusicology becomes important. You hear about somebody in Ghana and they invite me.
Yes.
So I've gone all over the world because of it.
And in Ghana, do you have researchers who are studying Ghanaian traditional music from an ethnological?
Well, I studied the School of Music and Drama in Nkrumah's time. Dr. Kwabena Nketia was interim vice chancellor, and during his time, I proposed to Nkrumah to start African studies, and he agreed. I started the idea of doing research and field collection and so forth.
When it comes to music, it's all over the world,
Right.
in every culture.
Sure.
But what is it music can bring human beings?
Well, It is an outlet for a certain emotion that you express. And all human beings, in a certain state of mind, sort of say something or sing something or so. But it becomes both a natural reaction to its situation and also a national step, a rational step one takes because it exists and you learn it as you grow up. And you get to a point where you can do similar things, but you are not quite ready to create until you get to a point where you can also create your little songs and so forth. So, I mean, I had non-literate parents, but they were taking me to performances and so forth and so on. And I happened to be very interested in seeing things because I was a child and there was so much exposure, that I could see things happening at the court and places and so forth.
What role do you think that traditional Ghanaian music has had on the nation building of Ghana?
It has played a considerable role because we are individual cultural groups, language groups, and music, dance, and so forth provide an avenue where we can share both our local experience and the countrywide experience. And in fact, it became a very important part of nation building. We call ourselves Ghanaians and do certain things. Ghanaians, because we have come to a position where we learn from one another. And the whole idea of Ghana is the combination of all the resources that we have in the country. So having a way of learning from one another became important. And of course, this could be institutionalized. And the idea that Nkrumah, well, not Nkrumah had, but the professor of sociology had, in giving me a position in the sociology department to start this, was also adopted by Nkrumah on a larger scale, and then he set up the Institute of African Studies. So I could continue from sociology to the institute and so forth.
In 1994, I traveled around the country, went up to
Right.
Bolgatanga and Navarongo and Tamale, Mbole, Wa.
Right.
Well, there is a vast diversity of
Sure.
instruments and cultures in
Sure.
Ghana. Can you say
Sure.
something more about this?
Yes, well, the diversity, I think, is a blessing because if there's something in a society in Ghana that you don't know, learning that and making that a part of your Ghanaian experience became the ideal, as we became a nation. You see, so instead of when you tell you are a Ghanaian, we know you have something in your own district and so forth. But learning and sharing the experience of the other cultures became very important for the idea of nationhood. So Nkrumah became aware of this, and he supported this thing. Of course, Busia was also aware of it. That is why he started the research fellowship, and provided all the things I would need for doing research. Tape recorder, assistants, car, and so forth. At that time, when I think of it, it was really extraordinary, And I did not have I did not have to teach courses. I was just doing this and doing my notes and so forth and so on. And this is what attracted Nkrumah when he became president. Found me in sociology department, pulled me out and started an Institute of African Studies.
And the contribution of the traditional music into the modern society,
Yeah.
how do you see that?
Well, it's going on. It's going on. Perhaps sometimes in an exaggerated form, of course. Our approach had to be systematic because we went through a certain discipline as scholars and so forth. But now people go by instinct. If you can move in a certain way and you have friends who can move in that, you introduce it as a new feature. Whereas in the past, our people were conscious about certain movements not being quite right and so forth. Now it seems people are taking a lot of liberties, and so forth. But in our time, we were close to the tradition as it was. So it was a good time to start field work, do recordings. And Busia, in his wisdom, had ordered a tape recorder and all the other things that I would need. So I would go out with the team and we were collecting, until Nkrumah saw it in a bigger way and wanted it to be in an institute of other countries.
So how has tradition changed up till now?
It has changed. The traditional things are still there, but those who have gone through the social change are now exposed to things from other cultures, and there are opportunities for people to borrow and even perform other people's music. This idea was what led us to form the Ghana the drama dance ensemble.
Can you tell me more about this drum and dance ensemble?
Well, it gave us the opportunity of taking music and dance forms from various territories for our tribes and pulling them together to be learned by a team of people also drawn from the different places. So it was the first idea of thinking about Ghana as a country with several cultures but interrelated. And so Ghana itself stands for the general combination, whereas the tribal thing goes on as the practice of the wood, from which we draw and begin to do things that we can show to other people, as we go from place to place. So the idea of Ghana as a unity, a unified thing, was combined with the idea of sharing the music and culture. And this is where Nkrumah was strong, because he embraced it and enabled us to set up the Institute of African Studies. So I moved from sociology department to continue there.
In Ghana, you have many different clans and tribes, or whatever you would call it.
I think there are two ways of thinking about it. You can think of them as something that enables individuals to do something immediately with problems in the area or things in the area. But in terms of the growth of the nation, it became a resource. So you learn to do dances from Ghana, from Ashanti, P, this and that. And so the idea of the Ghana Dance Ensemble, for example, was a national theme where the individuals knew more than what they did as members of, tribal members. The idea of thinking of the individual tribes as resource for a nation was emphasized in the Nkrumah style.
Talking about individualism and collectivism, I think in the old traditional society, the family, the clan, was the major thing. And in modern society, the individual. How do you see this process?
It is both, the individual finds himself in that tribal community, and it is his obligation and right to be part of it. But the new Ghana idea means that you go beyond your ethnicity and look at Ghana. So the idea of the Ghana Dance Ensemble was to bring dances from the new to be learned by a team of people trained to do dance. The beginning of the idea of Ghana as an integrating of communities.
So a patchwork.
Right.
Unity in diversity.
Right. The diversity being your strength, in the sense that you are providing things that are different but enjoyable. So instead of saying the same dances as they do, now you can see different. And it becomes then the basis for nation building. So the person who learns 5 dances from different places is quite different from his parents who can only do dances from this area.
Yeah. So you broaden your mind.
Right, and your experience, and you share the idea of a common culture, even though the components are derived from different sources. Yeah, this is what Nkrumah emphasized, and so he supported this idea, even though we started it in the sociology department and set up the Institute of African Studies. So that political thing has always been in our mind of shared culture, shared traditions, and so forth. And it has worked very slowly. We still have the tribal thing now and then because we have maintained the tribal festivals and so on. But we look at them as material also for the new era, where we can take things that are interesting from different places and show them to a wider public. Right.
If you take the traditional music of Ghana, the instruments are different.
Yes, that is the challenge.
Yeah.
That we should learn to play those instruments. First, we had them collectively brought them together. Each instrumentalist performed his own music during a show. But the idea was also for others to learn from them. So the ideal is learning really from the traditions that we have in Ghana, but in the new context of Ghana, not the old context. So this became a very important feature of the new Ghana, and Nkrumah was very keen in supporting the dance ensemble and things like that.
What are the similarities between the different music styles?
Well, similarities. One thing is that we are all sort of rhythm conscious, and no matter the differences in intonation and so forth, we seem to appreciate something in the movement area. So this gave us the idea of making it possible for individuals to get out of their traditional shell and be in a dance ensemble where they learn dances from other countries. So the idea of Ghana as a country with shared culture has become an important one. And it is the goal of many people to be versatile.
But then you have this Center for National Cultures too.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about it? Is it still in existence?
Yeah.
Or is it
well, you see, because it was to promote, first of all, the traditional thing so that it could go on, but also to provide a place where something different from other cultures could be adopted, learned. So the idea of the Ghana Dance Ensemble was to bring together people from different societies who learn to perform the different dances of the, in the country. Yeah. And it has a bigger implication because in terms of Africa, we also want to share our experiences. And so sometimes we go beyond our borders to other places to learn. That process has been slow because there is so much to learn internally. We don't often go out. But it is the idea that anything from any part of Africa is something to be adopted, modified if we like, and so forth.
These days the world is very materialistic in a way, but music is in a different sphere.
Right.
Why is it that we must be interested in music? What is it that music can give human?
Because it's something you can acquire more easily than language itself. You can sing a song in a foreign language that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And dance, very specialized in terms of ethnic groups. But when you form a dance ensemble, you are forcing your individuals now to learn dances from other places. It's, in a sense, the cultural thing was a nation-building device. So that at the national level, you can do dances from all, so many places and so forth.
How is the traditional music? How is it connected to morality? Is there any kind of moral teaching in the traditional music?
There will be ethics. Movement has its limitations. There are good things you can do and things you don't do, and so forth. So it is a matter of using our discretion to ensure that what we teach our group will be acceptable to all of them. So it means making modifications here and there, sometimes ignoring something because of its implications and so forth. But the idea of shared culture was very important. And so every member of the dance ensemble could do more than 2 or 3 dances. Whatever we found, they learned. The idea of creating Ghana, which is a unified Ghana with options in individual ethnic groups and so forth, was supported and very much supported by Nkrumah and other people, in fact.
Well, my father was a historian, and I studied musicology and history at the Aarhus University. And is the traditional music a way of telling the tribe's history too? Is there some kind of history?
Well, I mean, any composer, will take historical material as a source for making music. So it may not be even for the purpose of preserving the history, as for reminding people of their tribal association and how they relate to. So we do that on a certain level, but the thing in modern place was also to give other people the opportunity of learning those dances, basic, so that there's a common Ghanaian countrywide culture with different inputs, and becoming an expert in a culture other than yours became very interesting for people. Yeah.
Do you have examples of history telling within the traditional music, and can you give me some examples of this?
Well, in traditional society, I mean, depending on the scope of the society, if you take Ashanti, we have Ashantis, but within it there are so many other divisions, and they have their own individual culture. But sharing the culture and in certain situations becomes important for nation building. And so in my hometown, for example, we had the Zongo people, they had their own forms and so forth. But in the time we had Akwasidai, which was the festival of the place, there would be an opportunity to go beyond what we do, and I incorporate the other people. So they are a part of the whole. And so on. So the idea of nation building was very important. In fact, it was the idea of nation building that also inspired us to regard the African thing and think of African unity and things like that. You know, it takes a long time to build the other one because it's, but now it is assumed that everybody is entitled to learn other cultures. So, in fact, we insist on it. Yeah.
Can you tell me something about the Akwasidai, this festival?
Akwasidai?
Yeah.
Well, it's a 40-day celebration of our past in terms of the chiefs who reigned. So they are remembered on Akwasidai. They are offered little things. I mean, ritual always involve using symbols and things that will remind people of the past. So the Akwasidai becomes as a 40-year thing where we remember our ancestor chiefs, the past chiefs, and our ancestor relations and so on. And this is also incorporated into the music. There is a historical way of talking about it, but in the music there are references to names and so forth that remind you of so and so on. If it is a drum language, you know, begin from somewhere and then you recite the appellations of all the chiefs, successive chiefs and so forth. Yeah, so it was a way of ensuring that the sequence of events and so forth doesn't destroy the unity in terms of things that are common to the groups. And so national development came as a way of expanding that facility so that an Ashanti can learn to dance Adwa, or not only an Ashanti will learn to dance Adwa, but other people and so on.
So they will take from the Ewe and the Ga,
right,
and the Ashanti,
right,
the Gonja, the Gomba.
Right.
In all these traditional musics, the rhythm is the basics, essential.
Yeah.
Can you talk some more about
this?
Rhythm
is essential, just as in Western music. 12/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, that's Western
that's right.
way of counting.
That's right. So in ours too, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You find all of it. I mean, the peculiar strength of African music lies in the rhythm. There it distinguishes itself from other cultures.
Yeah. The role of the drum, the function from, or the dolo.
Yeah.
Can you talk something about that?
Play the drum language, and it can also play drum music. Yeah. So.
And in the olden days, I think it was only for the chief to have a function from.
Well, a chief is the head of the thing. So if he has if there is a festival, let's say one for the chief, and it means that all members of the society participate on different levels. You know, there are some people who can just attend because there must be people to see what is going on. But there are others who have duties to perform during certification. It may be a musical duty or some other thing. So, so that was very important to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the singing, there's a lot of singing in traditional Ghanaian music too. Can you talk about what is the songs about?
Well, I mean, songs can be about anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what you want to remember or what you want to institutionalize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can have songs that deal with your lineage history.
Mm-hmm.
It remembers so and so. You can have, I mean, anything that we need to remember,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the present
Mm-hmm.
can be done through music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you have specialists who do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And within the traditional frame, is there some kind of secret knowledge within the music that is...
Well, there are always leadership, leaders, you know, who lead the singing or particular drums and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
They learn the tradition. They pass on the required knowledge to the practitioner. There are some who learn the parts, but they never know the traditions behind them. And so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
But there was always something that was continued from generation to generation and kept the tradition going.
Can you tell me something about the spiritual aspects of this music?
Well, the spiritual aspect is really what the individual derives from the music. It is by virtue of your birth and participation in group work, you acquire some of this as part of your experience, even without knowing exactly what they mean. You know, you do it because it is a formality. So there is a place for that. Then we have others where the specialists are the only people who know